Hi Scorpio, welcome to my channel. Scorpio, as I mentioned in the Solar Eclipse Initiation video and podcast, on 10th of June, Sun and Moon will come together as a solar eclipse at 19°47' of Gemini, along with North Node to plant a new seed, which will color our next 6 months. We would have 6 planets physically, parallel and anti-parallel, in the sky with the karmic nodes, like the whole universe is conspiring to bring something to pass. In this moment of eclipse, after a period of reconsideration and confusion, we are meant to see things clearly. It may not yet be time to start anew or announce, or external messaging might still be delayed as the ruler of the eclipse will be retrograde till 22nd of June. But the initiation of the new thinking, the new mind, that begins, a new thought form is born, and for you that begins a new phase of deep transformation, rebirth of power, joint finances and healing. North Node is where we stumble, we get up, and yet we start again, cause it's our path of forward growth of this lifetime, our karma of this lifetime. We must grow through and grow towards it. Every 19 years, we evolve a specific part of our life through leaps and bounds. This is the last 6 months of this karmic growth in area of your life which has to do with finances, growing through crisis, transformation through a loss, deep therapeutic healing. This mingles with the lunar eclipse theme of release of old sources of money, support and security. It's the period when we could detach from material assets, or the basis of our self-worth is going to shift. And a crisis linked to ego and money could be the impetus for a total transformation of our life. Fake identity and ego structures are released for something bigger. What we once held in high esteem and value loses meaning for us, and we open ourselves to others as a weight is lifted. Today we would not so much focus on this one event alone, but more on what these 6 months ahead of ourselves are supposed to teach us, and what kind of evolution of our mind is going to undergo, where one thought form or belief is being released and a new one which would serve us for the next 19 years is born. We never stop growing, but Gemini eclipses take our mind and knowledge for a leap in matter of days and months, which would normally take many years to come by. If you're old enough, this kind of growth, this kind of deep transformation and a complete change you would have experienced back in 2002, when possibly through a crisis, a transformation of your life came about which made you more powerful, more influential and more successful. Your access of assets, intimacy and values is being activated, as over the course of next 6 months, one adventure of our life, one chapter of our life ends. A cord is cut with the karma of one part of our life and another one begins. As promised, we would go deeper into all of this as it's relevant for the rest of the year for you. The whole reading will be organized in chapters with timestamps both in the details and in the comments section for you to access throughout the next 6 months. My name is Charu and I'm your host on this journey. So let's dig in. We start with covering the nature of the solar eclipse and what it implies for you. Scorpio, the 10th of June solar eclipse puts down the seed of a new, empowering and transformative time of our life, where through a crisis we get rid of limitations that have been holding us back so far. We focus on self-mastery here by going in depth into a subject which we have not delved in before, which might even be taboo, which might be unknown. Research is the focus here. Going into the depth of it is the focus here. Universe is teaching us to weed out, to let go what is not part of our onward journey of depth and honesty. So any fake crutches or the ideas of self-worth or fake sources of money which we have been relying on, that don't jive with our soul path moving forward, they might have been released or might be given up to move forward. And that could be an impetus for this new phase, a more authentic and powerful phase of our life which is coming through, possibly a crisis starting over. People who drain our energy, time, and soul, they are detoxed as well. This is a major purge, once in 19-year purge of our life, like toxins leaving our personal, professional, and health life, which is happening. We are recognizing our phoenix power and setting fire to what's not part of our new identity that we are creating. In this new phase of our life, we would be doing what's more authentic to our soul. We would also be learning to share our power and our resources and merge with the right balance of give and take in partnership. That's going to be a tricky one, but it's a learning eclipse. We are learning a new art, a new skill, and it has joint finances and merging with others written all over it. Working with others, helping others with our skills, also written all over it. This new seed requires us to think of deeper subjects, research, even learn of certain taboo or unorthodox subjects such as occult, self analysis, life after death. Difficult topics are handled with objectivity and with skills by yourself. They could be linked with occult, they could be medical related, they could be healing related, they could be astrology related, they could be psychology related. Things that are hidden from normal eye, those are the ones that you research and dug up, and those are the ones you explore and bring to light and acquire the knowledge of. This is also the place where skills linked to managing other people's money comes from. So we might initiate expertise in the underworking of the financial industry, either through learning to manage other people's money, or we would be learning to make money from unorthodox sources from others. This is an experimentation which happens because of a crisis, which happens because of cord being cut, and you would have to be open and gentle with yourself because it's an experimentation phase. In this time, we would have to accept help from others. Again, another tough one. And accept that there is more strength in going in together with someone, either financially or in skills. This death of our old self and rebirth of a more powerful part of us is important for our healing and well-being, as something very toxic is being released and cut off from our life. We would also be working for a more balanced give and take in partnerships, where we allow others to help us and accept support where it is needed. We would be reading, writing, researching about healing, about tougher psychological topics, and finances. There is a desire to clear out any actual toxins in the body as well. As I said, it is a once in 19-year purge. This is the time when old dietary habits are dramatically changed. We shed a light on what's going on below the surface with our psychological and physical health. It's possibly the time we knew about these toxins, but we were maybe not taking any action. But because of a crisis, and again, it could be a health crisis or it could be purely because we want to be lighter now and we want to heal ourselves powerfully moving forward, we take active action in the direction of healing ourselves of those toxins. This is a powerful time of turning things around, and if anyone can have a rebirth with objectivity and ease, it's Scorpio. Financial matters which are linked with money sources, loans, inheritance, savings, taxes, and joint finances also come into focus. This again could be through crisis, that we start paying attention to the financial aspect of our life. And it's possible that we are giving up a source of income, or we are giving up or disconnected from a source of income, or we have to give up the old view of money or the old value we placed on money and on assets. We might be completely revamping our expenses, our debt, and the concept of how to make money. Money will not be made by chasing after it. Money will not be made from standard sources. It would come from non-salary or irregular sources where you're paid in form of royalties or in investment or commissions by others. Sometimes it comes through financial sponsorship by somebody or spouse or will or inheritance or alimony. We closely analyze what appeals to our soul, what makes us tick, as we do not want to earn without our deeper motivations and our soul being in line. So, if there are professions which were not in line with your soul's motive, the craving of your soul for more depth, more healing, or something which you wanted to really do, which your heart was calling out to, but because of financial reasons you were earlier not able to do, because either we get addicted to salary, like maybe that source was blocking you from doing that is more authentic to you and taking a difficult step because of a life crisis or an event. Possibly that source, that security has been taken, and in that crisis an opportunity comes for you to finally take the plunge. It is possible that during this situation, during pandemic, during a crisis, you find an opportunity for investment, and that becomes the new source of your income. Helping professions are given a major boost with this. Talents that are linked to helping others on a soul level or psychological level or in health, that can be a big source of growth for you. You would look at ways to monetize and commercialize those assets and bring them in an easy to understand way to other people, finding objective expression of those very healing methods or those very helping professions. This shift was possibly first discussed also in January. This crisis is possibly have been in making for the last couple of months, where some action or a seed was planted in January of this major shift in your life. And then it was actively executed or worked on in the period of early April. But now in June, through some back and forth, it would be coming out in a more reformed format because you have got some time to think it through. You have got time to think through what do you want to do next. And with that, we take a more positive step, which is progressive, coming out of that situation, moving ahead of it, and making the best powerful move after that. There are still some shifts and changes which are planned till 22nd of June, post which it will be the right time to go ahead. Because there are still some reconsiderations and back and forth. My suggestion on financial matters especially, or if you're starting a new healing business or you're starting a new financial business or you're starting a new big loan or some sort of debt or new financial sponsorship, my suggestion is to sign documents after Mercury retrograde, which is after 22nd of June. But if you have to sign before that, my suggestion is to keep some leeway to change so you can come back to it. This kind of leap, this kind of change last happened in mid of 2002. So if you're old enough to remember, look back what sort of deeper transformation from a crisis happened for you where you came out like a phoenix. It will give you more faith moving forward. If there was a health issue that possibly developed in 2002, you would get a hint that it's possible that we need to be careful about our health during this time. Take the apt measures as we are being prompted to detox something from our life which is hurting us at a soul psychological level. Closest years where this kind of shift would have come would be end of 2011. But the polarities were different at that time, which means that themes were opposite at that time. It's possible that we started something which was independent, which was our own, which was earning income from salary or from a job or from a normal source of income, traditional sources of income, possibly in or around middle or end of 2011. That might be coming for completion or release right now. And instead of that, something more authentic, something that is more soulful is being birthed here. Sometimes a health measure that we had implemented back in 2011 or 2012, beginning of 2012, 12th, essentially 2011 December or January of 2012, that health measure can come for help right now. So from a health perspective, I would highly suggest, because this is a health eclipse as well. When we have eclipses in our 8th house, we need to be a little bit careful because it has to do with detoxing. So that means there are toxins in the body that need release. But there are different methods to release the toxins. There might be some methods we might have used back in 2002. We can look back to that period, or we can look back to December of 2011 or 2012, when certain healing methods might have helped us and we might want to revisit them. Although all Scorpios would experience this, and this is not an easy eclipse. We have had North Node here since May of 2020, when these deep transformative events began in our life. This is the part of our chart which has to do with Phoenix moment, rebirth moment. So these are not easy eclipses which we have been having since last year. All of Scorpio would have experienced this shift, but specifically Scorpio with rising sun or moon around 20 degrees of Scorpio, which includes myself. So 3 degrees before or after 20 degrees of Scorpio, which is around 17 degree to 23 degree of Scorpio. Or if you're a Scorpio sun born around 11th of November, again 3 days before, 3 days after, you would experience this rebirth in a very strong fashion. You would, in this moment, like I'm feeling right now, you would feel like in between worlds, like you're transitioning from one living situation to another. It is a rebirth for all of us Scorpio. It is a rebirth for our entire sign. But 20 degrees Scorpio is where exactly this aspect is playing out, and they would feel this very, very strongly and need to be careful, both physically, especially in a health situation. This is the time when something needs to be dropped, something needs to be taken off our food list, something needs to be taken off in terms of interaction because it's toxic, a work situation which is toxic, or something which is adding toxicity to your well-being. That needs to be released, and a power release happens. A lightness is felt as soon as you take that measure. In the second section of the meeting, I'd like to go deeper into Mercury retrograde. We right now have Mercury retrograde till 22nd of June. And while this whole process will pan out of eclipses over the course of next 6 months, there are some reconsiderations right now in June that we need to take. As this is a physical detox time, important considerations would be, are there any ailments? Are there any addictions? Are there any karmic ties of the past that are coming back again, that are showing their head again? These would be things that hurt you in some way. These would be the things that we need to finally cut the cord with. It could be people who in the past have hurt us. It could be people we feel karmically linked with, and we need to finally detox them out of our life. There could be things belonging to those people who we are still hanging on to, and they don't need to be removed. There could be food addictions. There could be ailments which are bothering us. Things below the surface, like toxins, will come to the surface and speak to us to actively move away from them. It's a karma of our life to move away from that now. Their karma with us is done, and we need to move forward. There could be expenses, addiction to expenses or substances that we need to get rid of. Matters of finances linked to insurance, taxes, will, inheritances, investments, shared resources, expenses, loans, debt would now need a deep review, because there might be certain errors or confusion over them, and you might be handling some of those matters in deeper detail or reworking some of it yourself by now. Now we plan forward. What is the next move ahead? How do we move ahead from it? Recognizing what is not working, recognizing what is toxic to us, to our body, recognizing that there are certain new balances we need in our life when it comes to our financial resources, or certain new investment linked corrections we need moving forward. We would now start looking at what we need to do moving forward. Repaying of debt, reallocation of resources, researching investment options to make our money work harder than that it does right now. Reworking expenses, renewing your rates if you offer healing services or you offer any kind of deep psychological services to other people, helping services in some ways. It's possible that you don't charge anything and there is a need to renew the rates. There is a need to renegotiate or rethink how to commercialize what others owe you, or the money you've earned from others. You need to review whether it is in line with what you deserve or not. It's not about money itself. It's about the right balance of give and take. It's about not having that thought in our mind that we're doing it and we're not getting any return for it. It is same in relationships. The returns of relationships, if we have been putting too much, there's an imbalance of give and take in partnerships. It's the time when we weed out what's not working. When it comes to people, when it comes to resources, when it comes to expenses, when it comes to way of communication, possibly these are the things we don't say, especially money related. Normally for Scorpio, ego comes in the way to say certain things. So we are learning the art of discussing all this imbalance in an objective fashion, which exists in any partnership. But it's the right time for us to renegotiate the terms of our partnerships in some ways. It could be a business partnership. It could be a financial arrangement you have with somebody. It could be discussion of intimacy and sex, which needs to be had. Again, all of this, we keeping it very Gemini style, which is light, objective, sticking to the facts and moving forward. But a renegotiation, a discussion, an airing of it instead of keeping it inside is essential. And we are learning how to say these things that we normally don't say and hold back, driven by the fact that we think that the balance will never exist, or because our ego comes in the way. Commercialization is a key theme here. Commercialization of certain skill sets that you have, which are very unique and different, which involves you doing a lot of research, a lot of thinking through things which are unique in nature, which other people don't see that you see. You'll be looking at how to continue to do that on a long-term basis by commercializing them appropriately. Similarly, sort of healing from, sometimes when you hold things back, right, when you don't say things, that causes a lot of ailments as well. So Gemini rules throat chakra. It rules our throat chakra. So if we have not said things, we block our speech, we don't express ourselves fully, and we don't highlight the imbalance for reasons, we hold it in instead of speaking it out. That is something, it's a pattern. It's a pattern that needs to be detoxed and changed as well. When Mercury is retrograde in Gemini, we learn how to connect with others and objectively express ourselves to others about what's going on. And for us, that expression is about depth of emotions, depth of relationships. It's about fair give and take in relationships. It's about fair give and take in resources and money, in shared resources, shared expenses, and in financial contracts. We last had Mercury retrograde in this area of our life back in May or June of 2015. You could look back at the time, as the Mercury retrograde cycles always carry forward the lessons of the last cycle. So if there was something that was not resolved, which was related to joint resources, which was linked to you not saying things when it comes to intimacy, when it comes to depth in a relationship, when it comes to joint situation or deep soulful relationships, karmic partnerships, or monetary or intimacy or sexual issues or health issues which were unresolved from May or June of 2015, they would come to surface. There was no eclipse at that time in Gemini at that time, but now we do have. So there's a much bigger leap you're taking right now. How it would help you is that if you look back at May or June of 2015, there could be certain lessons from that time that would come really handy for you to handle the current situation. There could be lessons from that time that will very much hold true in the current moment as well. So it will be good for you to review that time objectively to bring forward some of the lessons from that time. In the part 3 of this reading, I'd like to talk about the lunar eclipse. What is it that we are trying to release? Because a solar eclipse, a new start, which we're having, it always comes with a closure, a release, which happened with the lunar eclipse that we just had on 26th of May, which would impact us till 19th of November. The karmic fated event linked to that lunar eclipse will only happen in the first 10 days of September. So there is an event of disconnection, an event of release. It's like we know that something has ended, but there is some sort of cord cutting, some sort of release, some sort of last physical thread that needs to be broken as well, which will happen only, in my view, in early September. This eclipse, this lunar eclipse, was about detaching ourselves from a traditional revenue source or from a material asset, which might have felt easier, but it's not the place of growth for us anymore. And our karma with that part of our life is over. It's the phase when we possibly need to detach ourselves from an old value system, an old idea of money, an old identity. It's like quicksand. Money is like quicksand. The more we'll try to hold it with this transit, the easier it will move away. Because in some ways we are being taught to not place our value, our worth in physical assets. In some ways we are being asked to not place the same value on the things or resources we used to value in the past. And to some extent, this would have naturally happened for us. Sometimes that revenue source or that regular income source actually moves away because we already psychologically disconnected from it, because it was not fulfilling our soul in some ways, or it was not in line with who we were becoming. It's possible that we might for some time need to selflessly give our assets, our knowledge, our possessions and money in form of charity or in form of helping professions or in form of spiritual pursuits. And income, if any, will come, as I said, from unusual sources. We are at this point in time asked to invest in our soul and in our growth instead of expecting rewards. We are in the last 6 months of that journey, and it's the time to come out on the other end like a phoenix. Sometimes previously earned income is invested to get a higher education during this time, to gain greater understanding of a subject matter which is obscure in nature. It could be spiritual, it could be psychological, it could be financial. With the lunar eclipse, a detachment happens not just psychologically from some assets, but physically also from some asset form. It could be an actual asset that we are detached from, or it could be something that we used to derive our self-worth from. And now We are being asked to base our self-worth on something bigger than that, something more substantial than that, something more deeper than that. The food or the type of diet we used to have at that time, in some ways, that is also being asked to be released. As I said, this is a phase of completion where we detox possessions as well, release toxins, yes, release body weight as well by leaving any excess consumption out. Excess is being truly detoxed out of our life. Apart from toxins, it is material possessions as well that we are detoxing, especially the ones that don't hold any meaning in our life. We will be releasing meaningless expenses, meaningless waste of money, meaningless waste of food, and invest in foreign assets. It's a typical transit when I've seen people move away from spending money on assets, on expenses, and start investing instead of that. Investing in their journey, in their growth, in their personal growth, in their education, in their spiritual growth, or in actual assets, especially foreign assets. It's the time when we do research on unorthodox topics, and that might require some investment as well. Sometimes our knowledge is freely shared. Instead of holding it as an elite knowledge, we share it freely to benefit others. We selflessly share our assets, our possessions, which includes our knowledge with others. Our basis of self-worth becomes very different. It comes from soul's fulfillment. It comes from deeper topics. If all of our sense of self has been linked to one source of income or one title or ego identity, we are asked to release that security and reliance to find a deeper self. And that is the purpose of the current phase we are in. Growth going forward will come through working with others and not solo. So we would release some sort of individual pursuit. As a crisis in traditional sources becomes an impetus to open ourselves to others, open ourselves to share our talents with others freely, open ourselves to earnings from other sources. We are pushed to find some different sources where we'll have to openly give ourselves and our talents to others. We release the security and the safety so we can let the universe fill it up with possibilities of something higher and something different. The full information on what is being released and why this is happening, that would not be clear till early September, the purpose of it all, when a fated event will make things abundantly clear to us. Now, in the fourth part of this reading, I like to cover the do's and the don'ts of the next 6 months. As the two eclipses intermingle and color our next 6 months, we would also be living the last 6 months of this karmic rebirth that we're having. So in a way, this is the road to success that I'm laying down in the form of some do's and don'ts of the next 6 months, keeping in mind that we will stumble many times as we try to get the lessons of the North Node correctly. But in that process, the untried would be tried. So let's start on the do's and the don'ts. The first thing is, don't try to control money. Learning of investments is a great avenue. Managing other people's money is also a good avenue. But as I said, money will be like quicksand because we're being asked to not be the basis of our growth. So trying to hold on to old sources of income will be in vain. In some ways, we are being asked to have faith and release ourselves from the care of assets, physical possessions, and money for now, not waste our resources, our attention, and our thought on it for now. Money will not come from pursuit for the sake of pursuit of money. It would be a byproduct of something bigger. It could be a byproduct of helping others, of discovering talents, helping others create value from their talents, or helping others find self-worth, helping people in crisis, or support from sponsors, support from partners, support from unorthodox sources. And some of it can come from investments, if that is what we are learning and researching on. This is a period of big shifts for us, which would teach us emotional strength. We are developing a new muscle here. We are developing a new value system here, discovering a new strength and depth of our soul. We will become curious, and we might be already researching about the deep functioning of human psychology. Human psychology and what are the patterns of it. They become very interesting and important to understand at this time, as well as other people's value system. Why does a person does what they do, the motivation behind it. And a similar theme is trying to figure out financial markets. It has a similar connection. So it's a great time for research of human psychology, finances, and occult. Our spidey senses and our intuition is going to be very, very sharp, and it's already pretty sharp, but it's honed. So we sort of, grow that sixth sense that we have, both about people as well as investments. It is not our value system. It is not just our value system, but it's also our priorities in life, which is shifting. And it's dramatically shifting in this period. We become more flexible on our idealistic value system. If there was something that I need to have this standard of things, I need to have this in my life, that shifts. Some of it comes from understanding life in a more raw form, and some of it happens because we start understanding people in a very different depth. We start understanding people and their motivations and their baggage in a more deeper manner during this exercise. So these surface level issues, they somehow stop taking precedence, and we start looking at people in a different light. Our knowledge and skills, they are freely shared. We don't hold on to knowledge like it's a possession. We share what we know. We speak it, we share it freely. Instead of holding it back or just not expressing ourselves, we express ourselves. We would have to trust this change. Trust in uncertainty, showing objectivity in the face of instability. Explore and welcome the change. It's a tough one because we are a fixed sign, but in some ways, all of our growth is in change. We would learn that pain, crisis, rebirths, as much as we try to avoid them, they are integral part of being a Scorpio. And they often come on heels of a great positive shift and opportunity. Our greatest growth during this transit comes from a crisis. Learn to merge both your assets and skills, because it can help us create something bigger. So we merge our assets, financial assets, as well as our talents or skills with somebody else, and that helps us create something bigger than what we would have produced alone. And that will be a key lesson of balance of give and take, balance of how to maintain a financial partnership, balance of how to maintain an intimate partnership. That would be a key growth for the next 6 months for us. Discovering talents of others, joining forces with others on resources and on talents, leveraging other people's resources or managing other people's resources. These are all avenues of growth through which we learn the skill. Move away from self-reliance, from being on yourself. Open yourself up to others. And this is a very tough one. I think most tough one for Scorpio. These are not easy lessons because they are in conjunction with us. The lessons we are learning are not integral part of who we are. But we are being asked to open ourselves for growth. Open ourselves again to trust others. open psychologically to others. And we might have been closed for over 19 years, because this is a transit which happens once in 19 years. So, psychologically, in some ways, we might have been close to others over 19 years or so of our lifetime. The rigid view that asking for help is a sign of weakness would have to be released. That asking for financial sponsorship is a sign of weakness would have to be released. That asking for the right share from your own partner and expecting and asking for right depth and intimacy in a relationship is unfair or a weakness of yours. That bias, that belief that you have would have to be removed. Like asking for anything is a taboo in a Scorpio's life. That would need to be changed. And this is a transit where our growth will depend on how much of that we can do. This is a new phase in trust, a new phase in intimacy, a new phase in depth in relationships. We are relearning and re-establishing the equation. We are resetting and rebalancing the give and take in partnerships, where we allow ourselves to be given to others, where we allow others to do things for us, where we trust again, where intimacy becomes a bit lighter versus intense. We take a lighter approach to intimacy, to sex. It's a new chapter in togetherness. Sometimes someone significant comes in our life to teach us this lightness. And they come in a very fated way in our life just to teach us this part of ourselves which we were missing before, which got buried because of different things or because of just getting jaded in partnerships. We are learning the art of not just initiating partnerships, but keeping them. What takes to keep the relationships and keep the balance of give and take in them. Keeping them live, fresh, light, and lively. Our old and possibly rigid value system and even ego is being asked to take a rain check here. We're being asked to release those barriers, especially if it has blocked us from merging more fully with others. They might have blocked us in embracing love and intimacy. Now we open ourselves to belief and viewpoints of others and give up a little bit of being right. And it can feel like we are giving up our confidence, because lowering of ego feels like a confidence loss, but it's not. Keep the phoenix image in mind. We are being baptized by fire here. We are learning a new skill set which is imperative to your forward growth. We are moving away from the model where we were probably our sole provider financially and personally. And probably finances took a precedence over intimacy and trust, making us lose an experience of our life. The next North Node or Rahu Ketu move is going to be in our sign and in our opposite sign. In December, nodes will come in Scorpio, which means that the next set of 1.5 years of eclipses will be happening in our sign, where we will be even more asked to grow through others. The next 1.5 years, starting from December, our entire growth forward would be through partners, would be through others. So this lesson that we're learning in the next 6 months is of lowering our barrier and understanding how we can more lightly give ourselves to others without bias, without our guard up. And in that, certain toxins from our psyche, from our mind, from our body, they are being released. We are being unclogged before we become free to fully and happily be with clients, be with others, and possibly with a soulmate. Because when North Node comes in our opposite sign, which will happen from December, those years are critical for our relationships. The next 6 months will be dedicated to spiritual and psychological detox. And this is one of those quintessential let go of control periods where we have to let the fate take us to unknown places, as we are in some ways between worlds. These are the few years when how we connect with others and our personal life is going through immense changes. It would extend for next 2 years, as we would have next Rahu move in our partnership house for next level of leap in our committed relationships, which starts from December. More of that later, but I'm telling you that this is not a theme for only 6 months. There is a reason why we are being told to learn this art form. On the health side, one of the another things I wanted to tell you is guard your lungs. We have to do something to unclog the air around us in some ways. This is a mega purge. So something possibly is irritating if it's irritating your lungs, and I said there are emotions which are normally choked. Throat chakra is choked. They need to be said, they need to be voiced in some ways, but we are learning the conversational art of expressing them without losing our cool, essentially. Now, these themes are very much consistent with the Saturn square Uranus theme, which is also becoming exact on 14th of June and would work in parallel with the eclipses themes that I've discussed for the next 6 months. Uranus is sort of setting your partnership models free. So Uranus is in your opposite sign right now, and it is prompting you to have a unique model of partnership, which is very much in line with what I've just said. And Saturn is in your house of home and family, so there is an inner rewiring that Saturn is doing. I have discussed this in depth in your 2021 video. I'm not going to cover that here, but know that this very critical transit, which is very, very critical for you and impacts your partnership, your personal life significantly, that also becomes exact in June. So there's an interplay of the eclipses and that aspect which is happening over the course of next 6 months as well. In the last part of the reading, I want to cover Neptune retrograde. Neptune is going retrograde towards the end of the month on 25th. And with that, some truths that were blind to us, that we had blind spots for, they would be coming to surface. And these have to deal with love, with children, with passions, with gambling, with hobbies, with passion addictions, with creative ventures, and the risk we have taken for the sake of love and passion. Neptune has been in this beautiful position since 2011, and with that began our pursuit for the ideal. Ideal in love, a creative high in our creation. It's a gift, this placement, because it's the highest inspiration and creative high anyone can be given. And we as a sign have been given that, and it makes a positive aspect with us, inspiring us to find the ideal, inspiring us to take risks for heart, for passion, for children. The downside is sometimes we gamble away too much, love too blindly, get used by our loved ones, and make people depend on us to the extent that we lose any time for ourselves, that we lose ourselves to love and passion. If there are some undue, or dare I say foolish risk we have taken out of our passions and blind spots, we would be shown some of that through Neptune going retrograde after 25th of June. The cost of those passions will come to us with a reckoning. This would be a deep realization, and it is something that we need to know, so we know for future what risk is worth taking and what is not. Sometimes if we have been blindly in love with something, it comes to surface, the reality of it comes to surface. Jupiter is also moving into your house of passions, and fully Jupiter will move here only in 22. So Jupiter moves into the house of passion, love, children, creativity fully in 2022. I described that in detail in the 2022 preview video, which I'll link below in case you want to review that. But Jupiter moving here definitely helps, because this is one of the, if I may say, most lucky position of Jupiter. And Jupiter will be very strong in Pisces in 2022. What's happening in June is that on 23rd of June, for the time being, Jupiter is just touching toes in this part of our chart. Just briefly. It will fully come here end of December and then stay throughout 2022. But what's happening on 23rd of June is that Jupiter is making a positive aspect with Sun. Some support or some breakthrough is given to us, and that helps us know which risk is worth taking because it benefits us, and which risks are not worth taking. So there would be some splitting of the milk that we'll see towards the end of the month, and that happens in the area of risk taking, gambling, the things that we gamble on in personal life and in professional life. So passion projects, love, children, investments. There would be some amount of clarity that will come on that. More of that will come in 2022, but now we need to be careful on risk taking, because something is a blind spot for us, and that will come for review. Aim is not to stop taking chances, but rather over time create a strong framework, strong intuition about what or who is worth your time and resources and what is not. And unfortunately, that happens through some disillusionment, that happens through some disappointments. And you would have already experienced few of that in love, in children. Sometimes children become too dependent on us. Sometimes, it's a love affair where we are over idealizing the person, and the person is never available, but we keep thinking they're available. It's the art of selfless love that we are being taught. And in reward of it, we're getting some out of this world creative output. And if you're honest with yourself in this pursuit for selfless love, we do find love as well. We do find people who love us selflessly as well. So it's a delightful placement, but it does come with blind spots and risk taking. And we have time till 2025 to create our creative masterpiece. But next year would be critical in that, when Jupiter comes in, it makes it very supportive to expand the benefits that come from taking risks. Neptune is making a hard aspect with this specific eclipse, which shows that there is a hindrance to a personal issue that we need to manage for us to be able to do what North Node and this eclipse is prompting us to do, which is merge with others. Because if we are over idealizing something, how do you merge effectively, objectively with others? Similarly, if you are totally rose-tinted glasses, merging financially can be a dangerous aspect. Money and idealism or creativity or love, they clash. Because if we are so in love with what we do, it becomes a little bit difficult to think about monetization and commercialization of that art. Similarly, if we essentially are so much in love with others, a fair give and take in a Neptunian relationship is difficult. Our hunt for soulmate comes in the way of keeping things light when it comes to intimacy. Love costs. Children come with expenses. And any creative high or business ventures of passions, they need money. And we sort of are moving away from that. So there's a issue that needs to be crossed that has to do with two conflicting part of us. One is idealistic, and the other one which is trying to keep things real and wants to go in together with something. Wanting to live a fine life conflicts with the pursuit of death. If you're trying to pursue depth and detachment from possessions or loss of income, wanting to live a fine life or having expenses for children or having expenses for creativity is something that clashes with it. Similarly, the light and the dark parts of our own psyche, they fight with each other, and we almost feel bipolar with this aspect. The crisis we are undergoing, it can disrupt our creative juices or block our childlike joy or take us away from love and fun. Craving for passions does not help in trying to maintain a balance in relating with others. These conflicts can show up as power struggles in love and with children, and sometimes dark creative flows from it. But their positive manifestation, if we try to balance the dark and the light side of us, the positive manifestation can be healing creative flows if we balance these two parts of us. One that wants to essentially objectively write about tough subjects, and a Neptunian side of it, which helps us write in a very creative and loving way. So you can write about some very difficult topics in a very healing and creative fashion. The psychological cleanse and renewal that we're trying to do, detox done right, can feel very freeing, and it can actually open us up to creative and love highs. It can help both our love life and it can help our creative life as well if we detox from things that are bogging us down. Similarly, creativity itself can be a way to deal with our own complexes. Creativity can be healing too. It can help us in our crisis. Not every poet and lover has to be a tortured one, but yes, many in this transit, they do look like both. You don't have to look like a tortured poet. You don't have to look like a tortured lover in this transit. There is a way to have the balance of the two. And we are called to find the balance of these two parts of ourselves. And as some blind spots open up, it helps us. Jupiter helps us bring some positivity on 23rd. We'll also start measuring life's returns itself in different terms and shift our viewpoint on material assets. This balance would in some ways come through that as well. Neptune here makes us like Sigmund Freud, who used to have this placement, and it helps us get great insightful view into human psyche, the intuitive process and the healing, which is a rare gift which if you can creatively put in a format that others can take could be of great asset and value. Dean Martin, Scott Fitzgerald, they had this placement of Neptune who leveraged it to write the greatest romance novels of all times. And Dean Martin used it to uplift others by making them smile. So we can make a positive spin to a very dark topic using this placement. And that is a positive manifestation of this harsh aspect. Just remember, in this cycle, love is also an asset which we would be asked to selflessly share with others. That's what I have for you, Scorpio. I'll close here. Have a great season of eclipses and next 6 months ahead. I'll see you in the next video now. Thank you.